My dear sister, my dear brother, you keep saying it was a breakup. But what if I told you it was actually a mercy you haven't recognized yet? What if Allah closed that door because the next one opens to something far, far better? Sometimes what leaves your life was never meant to be part of your jannah in the first place. Allah took them away, not to hurt you, but to bring you back to Him, but to bring you back to Him. My beloved brother, my precious sister, I know you've been hurting quietly, privately. Maybe no one even knows the tears you've been hiding. You smile in front of others, but behind closed doors, your heart feels shattered. You keep replaying it all in your mind. Why did it end like this? Why did Allah let them walk away after everything? Wasn't this love? Wasn't this my future? What if I told you something that could change everything? It wasn't a punishment. It wasn't a curse. It wasn't your failure. It was a rescue. A divine intervention from the one who knows what your eyes cannot see and what your heart does not yet understand. Understand? You thought it was just a breakup. In the unseen world, your soul was being pulled away from a path that would have drained you. A path that may have felt warm but was slowly dimming your light. Because sometimes we hold on to people who are not meant to walk with us into the future Allah is preparing. Saw love and memories, but Allah saw the truth behind every smile. He heard the words said behind your back. He knew the distractions that were beginning to pull your heart away from Him. Out of love, He didn't let it continue. You cried over someone walking away, but in reality they weren't walking, they were being removed. And yes, it hurts. But just like a surgeon cuts to heal, Allah sometimes breaks your heart only to save your soul. Right now it feels like a storm. Everything collapsed, everything lost, everything lost. Keep asking, why me? But when Allah loves someone, He protects them, even from the things they believe are good for them. Sometimes we fall so deeply for a person that we begin to forget our purpose. We start making them our source of happiness. We check our phones more than we check our hearts. We pray less. We think less about our akhirah. And without realizing it, we start depending on a human being more than the one who created both of us. It's dangerous because anything placed above Allah becomes a test, becomes a burden, and begins to damage our peace. So in His mercy, Allah removes what's standing in your way, even if it's someone you thought you couldn't live without. You thought you lost someone, but in truth, you were being saved from losing yourself. They weren't just taking your time, they were taking your focus. They weren't just in your life, they were taking the space that belonged to your Rab. Allah knew that if He let it continue, you would drift too far. So He stepped in, quietly, painfully, but mercifully. He took them, not because He hates you, but because He loves you more than you could ever imagine. And perhaps you dislike something while it is good for you. Quran 2:216. That's not just a verse, that's your story. You disliked the separation, but it was good for your soul, good for your future faith. You thought they completed you, but the truth is they were slowly emptying you. When Allah removes someone like that, He's not just taking away, He's making room. Room for your sujud to feel sweet again. Room for your heart to breathe without overthinking. Room for peace that doesn't depend on anyone's attention. What you thought was an ending was actually a beginning, a divine redirection back to the one who never leaves. Crescent moon, maybe you don't realize this yet, but the version of you that's rising right now, the one who prays more sincerely, who cries to Allah with honesty, who's learning to walk alone, that version is stronger, wiser, and more beautiful in the sight of your Lord. This version was born through pain, through loss, through a kind of heartbreak that felt unbearable, but was actually a mercy in disguise. One day, not far from now, you look back on this very moment with tears in your eyes and whisper, Ya Allah, thank you for taking them away even when I begged you to let them stay. Because you'll finally see that what you thought was the end was actually the beginning. What you thought was rejection was protection. And what you thought was heartbreak was actually your rescue. You didn't lose anything. You were redirected, saved, and loved in the most sacred way. You realized that this wasn't a breakup. It was a spiritual awakening. It was the moment Allah brought you back home to Him. That separation you cried over wasn't rejection. It was divine protection. You felt it, didn't you? That slow fading when the replies became shorter, their presence colder, their heart distant. You saw it happening, yet you still tried to hold on. You explained yourself over and over. You prayed harder. You gave more, hoping they would stay. But no matter how tightly you held on, you couldn't stop what Allah had already written to leave. They didn't just walk away. They were removed by a Lord who loves you too much to let you stay tied to something that was silently breaking your soul. You saw it as rejection, but Allah saw it as protection. Because sometimes the thing you want the most is the very thing that would take you farthest from who you're meant to become. You looked at them and saw your future, but Allah looked deeper and saw how they would have buried your potential, delayed your purpose, and distracted you from your real mission, to return to Him with a clean heart. You thought you weren't enough for them, but the truth is, they were never enough for the version of you that Allah is creating. They left because they couldn't walk with the you that's rising. The you who prays at night, who whispers yalala through tears, who no longer begs for attention, but begs for peace. You wanted it to last. You made do for them. You asked Allah to keep them in your life. Allah to keep them in your life. And when He didn't, you felt abandoned. But listen, Allah heard every word, counted every tear, and still chose to let them go. Not because He ignored your pain, but because He saw what you could. He saw what was being planned behind your back. He saw the shift in their heart when you weren't around. He saw how they were treating your soul carelessly, and out of mercy He stepped in. They were standing between you and your growth, between you and the clarity you were secretly praying for. You couldn't see it, but they were holding you back. And sometimes growth requires subtraction. You didn't fail. You didn't do too little. You were simply being transformed through pain, through distance, through divine redirection. Because sometimes Allah removes people not to punish you, but to prepare you for peace, for purpose, for the kind of love that brings you closer to Him. Crescent moon, you weren't too much. You weren't impossible to love. You were protected from becoming someone who forgets Allah, from a future built on temporary comfort, from a bond that looked beautiful on the outside but was hollow within. You may have loved them deeply, but Allah loves you more. And that's why He removed them, even when you were still asking for them to stay. If you're wondering why your du'a to keep them wasn't answered, maybe it actually was, just not in the way you expected. Maybe Allah was answering an older dua, the one whispered in tears. Yeah, Allah, give me what's best for my deen, my dunya, and my akhirah. That's the dua He honored. So you didn't lose anything. You were spared. You were rescued. You were hidden again until someone deserving is written for you. Don't confuse their absence with Allah's silence. Don't confuse their rejection with your worth. They left because Allah cleared the path for something deeper, safer, and purer, something that won't pull you away from Him, but push you closer. This is not a punishment, it's a rerouting, a blessing wrapped in heartbreak, a mercy disguised as loss. You will heal, you will smile again. Not because someone returns, but because you'll finally understand why they had to go. There is no rejection in what Allah removes, only redirection, only love in its highest and most sacred form. The people written for your peace will never disturb your soul. The people meant for your path will never push you away from your Rab. Let that be your sign. Let that be your measure. And when you feel the ache of missing them, turn to the one who never left, because in His company, your wounds will finally close. Maybe you didn't get closure from them, but this is your closure. This is your peace. They weren't rejecting you. They were leaving you so Allah could protect you. And that's the most loving thing your Lord could ever do. Before Allah elevates you, He separates you. You wonder why it ended, why they walked away, why it all fell apart when you were just beginning to dream. You sit in silence now, and that silence feels louder than any noise you've ever heard. You feel abandoned, empty, cut off from the world, even when people are around you. But I want to gently remind you, before Allah elevates you, He separates you. Before He blesses your soul with something greater, He creates distance from everything not meant to go with you. Even the Prophet, before the Quran descended, before Jibreel began Arabic kalam, Arabic het, Arabic alif, Arabic lam, Arabic sin, Arabic lam, Arabic sin, Arabic lam, Arabic alif, Arabic meme appeared, before he was called Arasullah. He was alone in the cave of Hira, isolated, separated, not because he was forgotten, but because he was being prepared. You see, isolation is not abandonment. It's purification. It's where Allah begins to clean the heart, clear the distractions, and prepare you for something you would never expect. Sometimes, what looks like a breakdown is actually your breakthrough in disguise. You thought this heartbreak was pulling you down, but what if it's pulling you up? What if this is your cave moment? The place where everything becomes silent so you can finally hear the voice of your soul again. There's a reason Allah takes people out of your life before He blesses it. There's a reason why certain doors close before others open. Some people can only survive in your old chapter. They can't breathe in the light Allah is bringing next. He knows that. So He separates you, disconnects you, not because He's angry, but because He's preparing to upgrade you without interference. Because if certain people stayed, you would never grow. You would stay emotionally dependent, spiritually distracted, and forever attached to what was never meant to last. So when Allah removes, He's not depriving you, He's refining you. He's not ending your story, He's rewriting it with mercy, purpose, and peace. Crescent moon.